Is there already a new danger looming? Glacier collapse feared above Blatten. Nearly a year after the collapse of the Oigschtchummun Glacier, Blatten in the Lötschental Valley of the province of Valais is once again on high alert, guys. This time, the Oigschtchummun Glacier is threatening to partially break off following dangerous ice falls. Experts are monitoring the area with state-of-the-art technology. What the heck is going on? It's a year after the nightmare that happened in Blatten in Switzerland, and the nightmare is not over. It might restart again. Close by to the disaster, there's another glacier, the Oigschtchummun Glacier. Oigschtchummun Glacier. Do not try to pronounce this, guys. It's a little bit difficult for people that do not speak German or the Swiss dialect. But it is located right there, just south of the Fafleralp. The Fafleralp we all remember from Blatten, when it had to be evacuated and when people were stuck at that hotel that is there below the Breitlaujjoch. And the glacier front that we're talking about right now is roughly 2,600 meters, 8,500 feet. And we already see Rockfalls breaking off in recent months. So what is happening there? The Oigschtchummun Glacier near Fafleralp, it's the same Lötschental, the same valley above or near Blatten. We hear isolated breakoffs and anomalies at the glacier. And of course, it's the same time of the year where spring is coming, temperatures are getting warmer, we have melting water, melting ice that is lubricating maybe existing cracks. We have, while that is melting, it can destabilize the mountain and the glacier. So the news that I'm getting from Switzerland now is Swiss glacier shows instability near disaster hit Blatten. Another ice giant in the same valley threatens to collapse or partially collapse. Will we see the next glacier collapse is another headline. Glacier break off above Blatten is feared again, another headline. Blatten again on alert, partial Oigschtchummun collapse feared. So they haven't even dealt with the disaster in Blatten yet, and now we have news of another maybe potential impending disaster. So that new glacier is under close observation now, a year after the Blatten tragedy when the Kleines Nesthorn collapsed. The Lötschental Valley in Valais, in the province Valais in Switzerland, is once again on alert. So the Oigschtchummun Glacier lies south of the Fafleralp below the Breitlaujjoch Pass. And its glacier front is at an altitude, I said it, of approximately 2,600, 8,700 feet. Isolated rockfalls have already been observed there in recent months. And we all remember how it started with Blatten. It started similar. That's why experts are saying, okay, we don't expect the disaster right away. They said that in Blatten too. They thought that it might come down in portions. They were absolutely surprised when it came down at full force, all at once. The mountain collapsed, fell on the glacier, and then everything came down. But they say we see parallels, we see scary parallels, and that is absolutely the problem. And we have an increased rockfall, not only at the new glacier, but also at the old break-off site. We have also rockfalls now at the Birch Glacier. Good thing is the area that is just a few miles from the Birch Glacier and the devastated village of Blatten, it is largely uninhabited. So for now, hopefully not another village, if Shizzy hits the fizzy, will be buried by this, but it will have serious implication. Just a few days ago, the local authorities said that satellite data and field observations had detected these isolated collapses and other anomalies on the glacier in recent months, and that can accelerate with everything that's melting, and warmer temperatures, rain is coming in. So this is the perfect setup for something that happened in Blatten. So the glacier tongue, and that is what is concerning, has also been advancing slowly since winter. So it's moving actually. So that is raising strong concerns that ice and debris could reach the cantonal road between Blatten and Fafleralp. That road has been clogged off last year already, right? So of course, we have to say the scale of the current risk there remains unclear, but they have learned huge lessons from last year's disaster. So they have absolutely intensified their surveillance there right now. They have conducted reconnaissance flights. They have been carried out regularly. And of course, just a few days ago, specialists have surveyed the glacier. They have used the LIDAR sensors to basically to build a detailed elevation model. And they have installed a fixed camera on May 13th to allow a continuous observation. Because when Blatten hit, thankfully they had evacuated everyone, but they still underestimated the scale of what happened. And when it was running off to the other side, it reminds me of the Tracy Arm tsunami, the monster tsunami that was having this runoff to the other side. Because in Blatten, they lost one shepherd that was on the other side in his barn, but nobody thought that it would reach so far up the other slope across from the actual landslide disaster site. So what they're telling us now, they will analyze the data that they have in the coming weeks, and they think that we will have a full risk assessment by the end of May. But as a precaution, the road between Stampbach and Fafleralp and a popular hiking trail remain closed. They're closed again. So these restrictions affect the upper Lötschental above the former village of Blatten and could delay the planned reopening of tourism facilities in Fafleralp, the hotel, in early July, which would be devastating for the hotel, right? They have suffered broadly since the Blatten disaster. Of course, they haven't suffered that badly as the hotels in Blatten that are completely buried by the Blatten landslide. So 1 year after the catastrophic event on May 28, we have this news again. And remember that in 40 seconds, more than 9 million cubic meters of rock, mud, and ice surged down the slope at a speed of roughly 200 kilometers per hour and have engulfed the whole village. And we still have these ongoing hazards. The site remains largely inaccessible. It still doesn't look great. So the Oigschtchummun Glacier south of the Fafleralp sits below steep rock faces where erosion is depositing debris onto the ice. Sounds familiar? Same thing happened at Blatten. So scientists also confirm this is a process that is accelerating as rising temperatures and thawing permafrost destabilize these mountain slopes. But that glacier has been on the radar of scientists for quite a while. There was a brief period of glacier advance in the 1980s where its tongue advanced or extended more than comparable glaciers, and that was raising the alarm. But the biggest problem is that the Oigschtchummun Glacier bears some similarities with the Birch Glacier regarding its size, exposure, and slope. And that's why we are all so concerned. So interestingly, also this glacier has shown a significant increase in ice thickness at the snout, like starting already about 10 years ago. So while the upper parts of the glacier have lost thickness, so that makes it like nose diving, so to speak, we could just say, right? And this is absolutely similar to the development of the Birch Glacier several years ago before the break off and that is indicating an acceleration of the ice flow speed. So, likely explanation for the recent advance is the gradual buildup of debris from these repeated rock falls, which adds weight and pushes the glacier forward. But they tell us, quote, the reasons for the glacier's advance cannot be definitively determined. It seems more likely that the increase in rock falls on both glaciers, the Birch Glacier and the Oigschtchummun Glacier, is decisive in explaining the advance of the glacial front. But here is the but. They say, despite the similarities, the officials from the Natural Disaster Service, they're saying the situation right now is not yet comparable to the lead up to last year's disaster. So they say the initial findings do not suggest a landslide on the glacier below, as was the case at the Kleines Nesthorn last year. So they say that the reconnaissance flights that they have carried out to date have not revealed signs in this direction until they do, right? And they say the big glacier collapse was driven by an exceptional load of rock. Yeah, but it started small. That is the similarity. The good thing is what they're telling us, the Oigschtchummun Glacier does not have a mountain like the Kleines Nesthorn on its side, which could load it very substantially with collapsed debris and rocks like the Kleines Nesthorn did, right? And bring it to failure. But they also say, however, given the history and the characteristics of this glacier, it's very important that they closely monitor it. And the problem is, they say they still have no clue how much material could potentially detach. So they need to do further field work to assess potential rupture volumes, right? So far, only small amounts of ice have reached the valley floor and no damage has been reported. But then there's also the Lonza River that was clogged by the Blatten disaster, right? And that created Lake Blatten that was also then flooding the rest of the village. So that river flows through part of the Lötschental. So there remains a risk that debris could reach it, right? And we could create another flooding problem. Currently, they say the risk is very low, but we have to watch that area. Blatten is still an absolute disaster zone, as you have seen in the videos in the background while we were talking. So stay tuned for more. If you want to know exactly what happened in Blatten, it's all very well documented, guys. I have a Blatten disaster playlist. I'll put it here in the end screen, but there's also so much going on in other parts of the world. So check out one of these videos and I see you there. Stay safe. Bye-bye.